Okay, today's Unit 7, Lesson 76, Evidence for Evolution. You guys have a test coming up soon. So, time to start buckling down, as the old folks used to say when it comes to getting ready for your test. It's going to be in 8 days. All right, here we go. Today's going to be all about evidence for evolution, and I have a lot of different visuals to present to you. So, let's just get right into it. As James said a moment ago before I hit record, one of the five evidences for evolution is biogeography. Can any of you recall which individual is credited for contributing this to evolutionary biology? What do you say, Catherine? Oh, Callan, a little louder. I can't. Uh-huh. All right. So, uh, biogeography is the study of the distribution of species across the earth and how they've adapted to their unique environments. Now, what does bio mean? Bio means life. What does geo mean? Earth. It's how life is distributed across the earth. Can everybody see okay? Just turn off the lights. Now, as Callan said a moment ago, this contribution of evidence for evolution was founded by Mr. Alfred Russel Wallace. Do you remember what part of the world he was bouncing around as he was realizing natural selection and how life is different in different areas of the planet based on their selective pressures? Oceania, we tend to call it. It's also known as the Malay Archipelago, which is right there. What archipelago did Darwin visit? The Galapagos. What ocean are the Galapagos Islands in? The Pacific, off the coast of what country? Ecuador, right here. All right. So, in my experience teaching this class and teaching this very topic, the one of the five evidences that students tend to neglect the most is this one. And so, a lot of kids take that challenge and say, "Oh, Mrs. Olson, I'm not going to forget it." All right, so you can just memorize biogeography. Bravo. And then I'll ask, "Okay, what is it?" And then the big question, I don't know. So don't just know what it, don't know that it is, don't just know that it is one of the five evidences. Know what it is, okay? All right, now fossil record. I am going to be spending some time on this one because growing up I was a big dino nerd, and this is my time to shine. So, fossil record. Strap yourselves in. I have a lot to show you and to fill your brains with. The fossil record shows all the forms and variations of life over the eons. The fossil record shows a timeline of the evolution of life. Now, y'all don't have to draw this next part, but I once saw something that I'm thinking about doing with my kid. My wife tells me I'm being really old doing it, but I remember seeing a picture frame of someone I knew, and right here was a picture of them in kindergarten, and then here was first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and in the middle was their senior picture. This is 13 years of someone growing up, and you can see how they've changed over the course of 13 years from year after year. And you can see a lot of change going from a little kindergartner to a senior in high school. I thought that was pretty cool. Now, the fossil record can do the same thing, but over hundreds of millions of years. And it allows us to see quite a bit of change over time that life has undergone. But the trick is, how do you know that you're putting all the pictures or all the fossils in the right order? Because it would be like having your fifth grade picture followed by your kindergarten picture followed by your senior picture. And that's all out of order. How can you actually get it in order? Well, that begins with this science, paleontology. Paleontology is the study of the remains of prehistoric life. You may have the misconception that it's just dinosaurs. It's not just dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are but a slice of the pie that is the history of life on Earth. There was plenty of time before dinosaurs, there's been plenty of time after. But I do want to try to bring you guys back down to reality. And I know we're all obsessed about dinosaurs. There's another Jurassic World movie coming out this summer. There's other dinosaur movies and cartoons and so on and so on and so. If you were to put the entire Earth's history on a 24-hour clock, dinosaurs show up they show up in the 10 o'clock p.m. hour. They're, in the grand scheme of things, they're not that new. If you were to put the entire history of Earth on your typical periods 1 through 8 school day, they show up in 7th period. So there was plenty of time in Earth's history before dinosaurs. All right. So don't just think that paleontology is strictly the dinos. It's any form of prehistoric life, prehistoric fish, prehistoric crabs, prehistoric plants, even mammoths, mastodons, things that came after the dinosaurs. Okay. Now, we've talked about fossils. I've talked about fossil record. I want to take a moment here, take a little breather. I want to show you a variety of fossils that scientists have collected over the last several hundred years that have really helped to put together the timeline of life on this planet as we know it. So here we go. This first fossil is that of an organism that lived before the dinosaurs called trilobites. It was a type of kind of like a crustacean. And it's all gone. It's wiped out. But the floor of the ocean across the world was covered with trilobites. They're everywhere. And just to kind of give you a modernized sense of this animal, if you go to the Disney World in Orlando, and you go to Animal Kingdom specifically, there's a little section of Animal Kingdom called Dinoland USA. They're going to tear it down soon, turn it into some Encanto attraction. And in the Dinoland USA is a little snack shop where you can get popcorn, cotton candy, a whole bunch of little treats, and it's called Trilo Bites. You get it, Philip? Trilo Bites, like you're going to bite on food. You get it? Yeah, yeah. All right. I want to show you guys plenty of other media I have here, and I think these are all pretty cool. I don't want to take up the entire period, so let's get into it. What you see on the left are actual paleontologists excavating the remains of some ancient organism that died a long time ago. I don't know if this is a dinosaur. I don't know if it's an ancient mammal. I have no idea. Will, what you doing back there? Now that's on the video forever. You have to call you out. Let's not do that again. This is a scene this is a picture from the set of Jurassic Park in 1993. The man is Dr. Grant. He's a paleontologist. He looks up the remains of ancient organisms. He's holding a dinosaur claw in his hand. And to his right is Dr. Ellie Sattler's girlfriend in the movie. And she is a paleobotanist. Now, paleo means prehistoric. And what do you suppose botany is? She's studying prehistoric plants. That's right. Okay. This next fossil is a dinosaur egg. The image on top is the actual fossil, and the image on the bottom is an artist rendering of what it likely looked like. Now, where this fossil was found, there were unhatched eggs with the baby still inside. There were baby dinosaurs found in the area, in the nests, in the nesting sites, and then there were adult dinosaurs that were around those babies too. So this led to the conclusion that there were adults and there were babies and there were unhatched eggs. These dinosaurs were parental. Now, as being a parental, like a caring parent, I mean, is that more of a reptilian trait or a bird-like trait? Birds. This is what is continuing to show that dinosaurs they have more in common with birds than they do with reptiles. I will say when dinosaurs were first discovered in the 1700s, They were given the name dinosaur. That means terrible lizard. Because when they were discovered, they found, with the fossils, they found the tails, the claws, the teeth. Oh, this looks like a big alligator. So they named it terrible lizard. Well, flash forward to the 21st century, we're realizing they are more bird-like than they are reptile-like. But you can't take the name dinosaur back. That's going to stick. This is a fern. That is a fern that likely fell into the mud. The mud hardened and perfectly preserved it. So we can even see how plant life has evolved over hundreds of millions of years. This next one is really cool. So this is a carnivore versus a herbivore. The herbivore is the one on top. That is a Protoceratops. It is related to a Triceratops. And the animal on the bottom is a Velociraptor. Now, I was around in 1993. I was 7 years old when the Jurassic Park came out, and I can assure you, no one knew what the heck a Velociraptor was before the Jurassic Park movies came out. Those movies made it famous. But there's a problem with those movies. In the movies for Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, etc., they depict a Velociraptor as being 6 feet tall and no feathers. Wrong. Velociraptors are actually 3 feet tall, the size of a turkey, and they're covered in feathers. But Steven Spielberg, the original director of the movie, says, I don't want to have a 3 foot tall dinosaur covered in feathers. I want a 6 foot tall dinosaur that looks like a dinosaur. Well, they used the body of a dinosaur called a Utahraptor, but they named it Velociraptor. That would be like saying, wow, Philip's so cool. He's so scary. But the name Philip's lame. I'm going to call him Leonidas. So they use the body of one species, but they use the name of a different species. But nevertheless, this is an artist rendering of a Velociraptor fighting a Protoceratops. And the reason I'm showing you this drawing is here are their fossils. These two dinosaurs were fighting each other and they got trapped in quicksand. And they sank in the quicksand. They died. And when their fossils were discovered, they were still locked in combat tens of millions of years later. It's a pretty crazy discovery. You might be thinking, why is the herbivore attacking the carnivore? The carnivore is trying to get the herbivore. The herbivore is not going to go down without a fight. All right. Next, anybody know what you call fossilized tree sap? Amber. And there have been plenty of discoveries of amber with little things inside, like spiders and grasshoppers. And I'll show you one down here, a lizard. Where'd I put you? There you are. Lizards and so on. Amber is fossilized tree sap that's hardened, and if anything got trapped in the tree sap, it's going to be preserved into it. In the Jurassic Park movies, the whole way that they were able to resurrect dinosaurs, and this is total sci-fi, you can't do this in real life, is that they found mosquitoes encased in amber. It's just like mosquitoes feed on the blood of animals today. Mosquitoes fed on the blood of animals in the past. And they found mosquitoes that had the blood of dinosaurs inside. And so they would drill into the amber, they would extract the dinosaur blood that was still in the mosquito, and they would use that to clone dinosaurs. That's the whole sci-fi of the movie. That's where they came from. The dinosaurs didn't just show up. Well, this is amber with a 100 million year old dinosaur tail inside. Now, if you zoom in on that tail, what do you see is covering the tail? Feathers. Exactly. This is from the Jurassic period, which is the middle period of the 3 time periods for the dinosaurs. It was Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. So this is placed at about 100 million years ago. This is an artist rendering as to what this dinosaur likely looked like. Now, while we're talking about feathers and dinosaurs and birds, I want to, just in case your brain is taking you here, I want to bring you back to reality. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. You've seen these flyers. Ooh, that's messed up. And you typically call these pterodactyls. This is a pteranodon. It's a type of flying reptile. These did not evolve into birds. And technically, those aren't even dinosaurs. By definition, dinosaurs are the ones that were on land. The ones that were in the water swimming and the ones that were in the sky flying are just considered swimming and flying reptiles. They're not dinosaurs. This guy's a dinosaur. So if you want to get technical, there's the true definition. All right, what else I got for you? This is a fossil with a prehistoric crocodile. You can see an artist rendering down there with a dinosaur in its belly. This thing ate dinosaurs. So that's a pretty cool find. It died with the remains of a dinosaur inside. This is a skull of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it is beat up. Look at how beat up his snout is. It's just crushed. You see scars on his jaws. these types of fossils let us know about their lifestyle. You know, T-Rex probably got in some fights, maybe with other carnivores, maybe with a herbivore that was trying to eat. And by the way, their teeth are the size of bananas, about 6 inches. So pretty scary animal there. Let's see. Let me pull this back. This is a pretty cool fossil. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of the big prehistoric shark called Megalodon. Well, just like you are called Homo sapien, that's your scientific name, this shark's name is called Carcharodon megalodon. And megalodon translates to big teeth. Mega means big, don means teeth. Like when you go to the orthodontist, don means teeth. And this megalodon tooth is wedged into the vertebrae, which is a backbone of a prehistoric whale. So nowadays, whales are way too big for sharks to eat. But back then, this shark was big enough to actually eat whales. But with my understanding of biology and history and my job to educate you guys, I do want to give you a bit of disclaimer with the recent Meg movies that have come out. You know, The Meg, and then The Meg 2, The Trench. These movies with Jason Statham fighting these big, giant prehistoric sharks. Okay, so strap yourselves in. Here's rumor control. In those movies, they depict the sharks as being the size of an airplane. They're more like the size of a yellow school bus. So they're definitely smaller in real life. Second, they do not exist anymore. They used to, but not anymore. And I had a student last period say, how do we know they don't live anymore? So if there was a shark that big, we would still find remains. There would be a dead shark somewhere. There would be animals with scars all over their body from maybe fights with the megalodon. We would find evidence of it. You know, it was decades until we actually saw a giant squid alive. We found giant squids dead, washed up across the world, but we never saw a living one until about 20 years ago. So, you know, there's a movie that Disney made called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And in the movie, their submarine gets attacked by a giant squid. We knew that the squid existed because we found dead squid, but we never found one alive. But we have now. So the same thing with the megalodon. Now, furthermore, at the beginning of the sequel, Megalodon 2, The Trench, it opens up 65 million years ago, and it shows a Tyrannosaurus Rex hunting on the beach. And the T-Rex chomps down on his prey, and he's standing there eating it. Then out of nowhere, a Megalodon comes out of the water and chomps down on the T-Rex, just to show, wow, this is a really vicious predator. Here's the problem with that. Dinosaurs had been extinct for 30 million years before Megalodon actually shows up on the fossil record. So T-Rex and dinosaurs did not coexist with Megalodon. Megalodon lived about 30 million years ago, so we're talking about the age of mammals, where whales were starting to show up in the fossil record, not dinosaurs. So there's that. But even that's still a pretty cool fossil. Let's see what else I have here. This is an image of a map where the crater is that the asteroid that hit the Earth that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago landed right there in Yucatan Peninsula. If it hit today, we would definitely see it and we would definitely feel it. Now, this asteroid was about the size of Mount Everest. It was 6 miles wide. It was almost like a global killer. And it wiped out about everything on Earth that was less than 40 pounds. Because here's the thing, when you have extinction level conditions, there's really not going to be a whole lot of food. Now, imagine that we got Philip here. It might take a Burger King value meal to get him full because he's a bigger organism. But then you got a little chipmunk on the ground, one French fry, that chipmunk's good. So when you have extinction level conditions, you don't have enough food to sustain the big boys. But for the little critters, there is enough food to sustain them. So typically when you have an extinction, anything that's over 40 pounds is a goner. And when this asteroid hit, it just heated up the atmosphere to tremendous levels. A lot of things just burned to death. But it also created a dust cloud that blocked out the sun for 2 years. Now, that would kill most plants. Obviously, not all the plants died because we have plants today. So some plants survived. But let's see if you guys can cause and affect this. If most plants died, plants are primary producers. What would be the next animal on the food chain that would suffer due to most plants dying? Primary consumers. And what is the diet of primary consumers? Plants. What do you call a plant-eating animal? Herbivores. All the herbivorous dinosaurs, gone. And then what do you call the animals that eat the primary consumers? Secondary consumers. What's their diet? I'm sorry, what do they eat? They eat meat. What do you call a meat eater? Carnivores, all the carnivores, gone. Okay? So that's how most of the dinosaurs died. Now, how do we know for sure that there was an asteroid? I want you guys to look at the periodic table behind me, if you can see it. I want you to find element number 77. That element is called iridium. And iridium does not occur naturally on Earth. However, when you dig into the Earth's crust, especially around Mexico, there is a layer of iridium in the crust, and that layer dates back to 65 million years. Also, below the iridium layer, we find dinosaur fossils. But above the iridium layer, there's no dinosaurs. So let's put all this evidence together. There's a massive crater in the Yucatan Peninsula. There's a layer of iridium in the Earth's crust around that crater. There are dinosaur fossils below the iridium layer, but there are no dinosaur fossils above it. So at one point there was dinosaurs, then iridium, no more dinosaurs. Something big hit the Earth 65 million years ago and deposited that iridium into the crust and also knocked out the dinosaurs. Safe to say, it's likely an asteroid. Here's another example of fossils. This is a river in Canada that dried up just due to drought. And when it exposed dinosaur footprints just in the rock. This used to be mud. The mud hardened into rock and it exposed a dinosaur just, walking down the road. So these are all varieties of fossils that we have. And a lot of the fossils, when it comes to things like dinosaurs, which again, I grew up liking dinosaurs, it really points to the fact that they're more bird-like. And so one last meme I want to show you. Now and then, I will be watching the local news and they'll say, now let's go to Lakeland where some golfers got an eyeful as a massive alligator was walking across the golf course. And one of the reporters will say, boy, that looks like a scene from Jurassic Park. And the biologist in me just goes, oh my God, it's not Jurassic Park. When we see alligators and Komodo dragons and iguanas, we think, oh, look, it's a living dinosaur. No, it isn't. Those are. I know, I see it too. But every bird that you have ever seen, whether it's a penguin, an owl, a shoe-billed stork, a flamingo, a peacock, a pelican, every bird owes its ancestry to dinosaurs. And I want to kind of just maybe have you guys sing something that come full circle. Get this. In the movie Jurassic Park, one of the scientists says, he goes, God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs. So that goes full circle. And so think of this. Dinosaurs evolve into birds. One type of bird is a chicken. We kill chickens for food, and we turn them into dino nuggets. Come full circle. It's a real thinker, Philip. Okay, so let's go back up here. I would like to talk about the law of superposition. If I were to go to your house and I was to dig through your garbage or dig through your laundry hamper, where would I find the oldest garbage or the oldest clothes? On the bottom. The same thing holds true with geology and with paleontology. The older fossils are on the bottom and the newer fossils are above them. Okay. So this law really helps us put together the timeline correctly and able to find all these fossils across the world and put them in the right order of occurrence. And I want to show you this visual that I have for you that I think is very helpful. And I do want to say that this is not to scale. Okay, let me tell you what I mean. So the very top is now. The very bottom is the beginning of Earth. This section right here, everybody, is about, I would say, 70% of Earth's history. All right there. So as again, this is not to scale. The the planet was basically the planet of the prokaryotes. But then right here in the blue section was where life really started to get interesting. You started to have a lot of invertebrates. An invertebrate is an animal that has no spine. You had animals that did have exoskeletons, you had animals that did not have exoskeletons, but also you had the very first vertebrates right here in the Cambrian period, and that was the first vertebrate, which was a fish. Now, this fish was no bigger than the fingernail on your pinky finger, but you got to start somewhere. And as time went on, this time period, known as the Paleozoic, is mainly the age of invertebrates, big dragonflies, big spiders, big centipedes, big lobsters, and scorpions. But as far as our ancestors are concerned with vertebrates, you had fish, you had amphibians, and you had reptiles. And that was it. No dinos here in the blue section. That's about as much of the vertebrate life forms as you had. Now, here in the green is the Mesozoic era. This is when the dinosaurs lived. Now, also during the dinosaurs, these guys lived during that time too. Obviously, because if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have fish, amphibians, and reptiles today. But something new that shows up are going to be birds and mammals. Mammals did live during the dinosaur age, but they were very small because they had to hide from all the big scary dinosaurs. But then the dinosaurs had their time, and that time was over. And then this orange, red, and yellow section is basically the age of the mammals. And you also had birds too. So that leads me to ask you, did every single dinosaur go extinct when the asteroid hit 65 million years ago? Of course not, because if they did, we wouldn't have birds today. So some did survive. All right, I want to now identify where the 5 mass extinctions occurred. And I want you guys to at least remember where and when 2 of them were, okay? So here's the first one. Here's the second one. Here's the third. Here's the fourth. And here's the fifth. The 2 that I would like you to remember is number 3 and number 5. Every kid in school knows about number 5. It's the asteroid. It wiped out the dinosaurs. And I'll talk about that one in a moment. But number 3 was the worst one. Do you remember what the nickname was of the worst extinction of all time that actually allowed the dinosaurs to exist in the first place? It was called the Great Dying. Now, extinction number 5, and is for that matter 4, 2, and 1, they killed about 70-ish% of life. Number 3 wiped out 96%. It was bad. Very, very bad. It was basically a global climate change that lasted for millions of years. Now, this is going to get me to a phenomenon called an ecological niche. I'm going to get here in a second, but let me just kind of lead you up to it. Whenever you have an extinction, it's very, very bad for the organisms that are in charge. It sucks. You lose your job, and in this case, you're wiped out. But it is a great opportunity for new life forms to rise up and take their place. I am the only AP biology teacher at Plant High School. But what if one day I just wake up and I say, I don't want to do this anymore, and I never show up here again? Does this mean that Plant High School will never have an AP biology teacher ever again? No, what's going to happen? Someone new will replace me. This is called ecological succession. There's always replacement. And the organisms that were dominant at this time were gone, at least the big ones were, and that allowed dinosaurs to take over. But then the dinosaurs had an end to their time, the asteroid hit, and now they're gone, and that allowed mammals to take over. So if you want to know why is this important for you to really comprehend, humans would never have had a shot if the dinosaurs were still alive, because mammals would have never had a shot. You would still be little squirrels hiding in the ground. And there's a Disney movie called The Good Dinosaur, where the whole premise of the movie is, what if the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs never hit the Earth? And it shows the relationship between a dinosaur and a little caveman boy, and me being who I am. I'm hate watching this movie, saying this movie's a bunch of crap. Because this little boy wouldn't have even lived in the first place. Dinosaurs would have still been around today. Okay? So that gets me to your next term, and it is called ecological niche, or the proper way to pronounce it, I think, is niche. Some people say niche. I've been saying niche my whole life. Let me see if I can get Siri to say it. Hey, Siri. Yeah, the service here is horrible, so I hardly get service here. Hey, Siri, what is a niche? Thinking. Yeah, the connection's horrible. Sorry. Sorry for those of you watching at home, but I'm going to try to practice to say niche. So everybody, everything, every organism has a niche. A niche is your purpose. It's your reason for existing. It's what you do. Alex, you play soccer? What do you play? You play soccer. What is your niche on the team? My niche at playing high school is AP biology teacher. I teach students AP biology. What's your niche on the team? Okay, what do you do in midfielder? You're a junior, right? When are you going to play soccer next year as a senior? And then when you graduate for plant, are we just going to have that spot on the team open forever and ever and ever? What will happen? You'll probably get a sophomore, junior, senior to replace you. So the ecological niche is the role an organism plays in its environment. It is its job. Like here's one. The niche of buzzards and vultures is to eat dead things in the environment so the environment doesn't just become overwhelmed with dead carcasses. That's their niche. That's their job. Everything has a job. Everything has a role. Now, why am I talking about this after extinction? Here's why. When there is an extinction, many forms of life are exterminated. They're gone forever. This results in open niches that new life forms can occupy. Maybe there's some really, really smart senior at the University of South Florida who's studying to be an AP biology teacher and just can't get a job because there's no openings. And then I quit this job and he takes over and he just takes this class to the next level. I don't know. That's how life has succeeded after these 5 extinctions, is that the creatures that were definitely subservient and hiding and just kind of second class, they get to take over and they get to have their time. So the big thing I want you guys to realize is when you have an open niche, it's got to be filled. Nature hates a vacuum. It hates a void, and everything's got to be filled. Everything has to have a job. All right. The next topic on this one, the last one I think for fossil record, I told you we're spending a lot of time here, is transition fossils. Transition fossils show how species evolved over time. Let's say I find a picture of Kellen when he's in 6th grade. I find a picture of Kellen when he's in 10th grade. I'm like, well, he didn't just go from like a 12-year-old to a 16-year-old. I got to dig for those pictures of him being 13, 14, 15. These transition fossils offer that. They show you how you get from one form to another. An example of this is whales. I have a whole video I'm going to show you for next class. This is a modern day whale that I've circled in red. But look up here. This is a prehistoric whale. They used to be on land. They used to have legs and run around. They were about the size of a bear. Now, they were like any other mammal, and their nose was at the end of their face, on their snout, just like a bear, just like a dog or a wolf. Where do modern day whales have their nostrils located? On the top of their head. They're called a blowhole, right there. So we should be able to find some sort of transition fossil that shows how, as the nostril slowly goes from the nose to the top of the head. And we have found it. Here's just one of them. Look at that nostril. It's not exactly on the tip of the nose. It's not exactly in the forehead. It's working its way up. So these are all transition fossils that take us from the land whales to the modern day whales that we have today. And there's plenty of stepping stones to go from the first form to what we now have. Now, to give you guys a little bit of incentive to try to memorize some of these transition fossils on your test next week, I'm going to make this extra credit. You don't need to ask your buddies in the second period, first period, hey man, what was your extra credit? I am telling you what it is. I'm telling you what you got to do. I'm going to give you two opportunities to identify two different transition fossils and what they are the transition between. If you can do that, you can earn some extra credit on your test. And in the past, only about 1/3 of students take it seriously, and the others just BS it. So this is the first one. I want you to look at this animal. It has claws on its fingers, has claws on its feet, has a lizard-like tail, and if it opened its mouth, it has teeth. This animal was hanging out in a tree 100 million years ago and just fell out of the tree, dropped dead, landed in the mud. And the mud hardened and perfectly preserved its body. Look at what's coming off of its arms, legs, and tail. What do you see? What's imprinted in the mud? Feathers. Exactly. This is an animal that lived during the Jurassic period 100 million years ago. This is called Archaeopteryx. And yes, you guys are in a college level course, so it's not too much for me to ask you to spell something properly. I have high expectations. Now, Archaeopteryx's fossils were found in 1851. You don't have to know all that, but I do want you to know what it is the transition between. It is a transition species between dinosaurs to what? What do you think? Birds. This was a major, major discovery. The word dinosaur means terrible lizard, but ever since dinosaurs were discovered, we have continuously found evidence that they have more in common with birds. There's a artist rendering of Archaeopteryx, probably about the size of a seagull. Here's another one. This is even older than Archaeopteryx, but it was discovered in 2005. This is called Tiktaalik rosea. And this is the fossil of it. And this is an artist's recreation of it. Now, I want you to notice that this animal is lifting itself out of the water. It has flippers, but its flippers are pushing itself up out of the water. Also, it might look like a fish, but for anybody who's gone fishing before, where are a fish's eyes located on its face? On the sides. Where's this guy's eyes? In the front, on top. This is a transition species between fish and amphibians. This is likely one of the first types of fish that had evolved the ability to pull itself out of the water and breathe air. If you can remember those two names and tell me what they're the transition between, you can earn yourself some extra points. Now, to put a final cap on the fossil record, I want to give you guys a quick rundown of vertebrate evolution. I'm going to try and make this fast, okay? Now, the very first vertebrates were fish, and they diversified into many species of fish. And we obviously have tons of species of fish today. Some fish, just a few, evolved into amphibians, and I want to make that abundantly clear. You know, did every wolf evolve into a dog? No. Did every fish evolve into an amphibian? No. That's not how it works. Now, some amphibians led to the evolution of reptiles. Okay? So we got fish, amphibian, reptiles in that order. And then there's a major fork in the road. Some reptiles evolved into dinosaurs, while other reptiles evolved into mammals. Now, what did some dinosaurs evolve into? Birds. And then the mammals include, eventually, humans. So you can see our evolutionary history. It does not include dinosaurs or birds. That was a different branch. But do we have a common ancestor with dinosaurs? Yeah. All right. Moving on. Let's get to number 3, comparative anatomy. Also called homology. What does homo mean? It means the same. If you can remember that, they'll go a long way. Homology is the study of characteristics that show common origin or ancestry. In high school, the only anatomy class that we typically offer is human anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is what the body parts are, physiology is how they work. When you go to college, you can take a class called comparative anatomy, where you can examine the similarities and differences between animals that have a common ancestor. And I want to really focus on vertebrates. Vertebrates are animals with a spine. Take a look at all these vertebrates. We have a human, horse, whale, turtle, frog, bird. They all have the same bones, like we talked about last class. The purple one is the humerus, the blue ones are the radius and the ulna, the orange ones are the carpals, the yellow are the metacarpals and phalanges. They're slightly different in every animal because they're modified for that animal's lifestyle, whether it walks, swims, flies, or something else, but they all have the same bones. These are known as homologous structures. Homologous structures are common structures in different species due to common ancestry. We're running low on time, so I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. Probably spend too much time on fossils. Next is going to be analogous structures. These are structures that have a common purpose, but different evolution. So in this picture, to help explain that, I have a bat, a bird, and a butterfly. What do they all have in common? They have wings. And what are the wings meant for? Flying. That's the common function. But if you were to dissect the wing of a bat, a bird, and a butterfly, they're all evolved differently. I'm sure some of you have eaten crab legs before. And I'm sure some of you have eaten a chicken drumstick before. Are they made the same? No. But what do a crab and a chicken both use their legs for? Walking. So these are known as analogous structures. They have the same function, but they evolve differently. Kind of like another example, an electric vehicle and a gas-powered vehicle. They do the same thing, they drive, but they're built differently. And then finally, for this section, we have vestigial structures, which I'll show you more on the next class. These are homologous structures that no longer serve a purpose. And I'll show you several in the human body. You guys identified a few of the easy ones like wisdom teeth in the appendix. But I'll also talk about the muscles that cause you to have goosebumps. Like, why do you have that? I'll show you your third eyelid. I'll show you the muscles in your ears that are supposed to make your ears move. I'll do all that next class. But an example of vestigial structures in a different animal, this is a modern whale. It's called the bowhead whale. And as you saw earlier, whales' ancestors walked on land. But if you were to look at the skeleton of a modern whale, near its rear end, you're going to see a vestigial pelvis. Now, a pelvis is where your legs attach to. Do whales have lower legs today? No, they don't need them. They swim. But if a modern whale has a vestigial pelvis, what does that tell you about its ancestors? It probably walked. Exactly. Like your appendix no longer has a function now, but in your ancestors, it did. All right, let's go to number 4. Comparative embryology. This is the comparison of the early developmental stages of different species. Now, I've said several times already that vertebrates have a very recent common ancestor, so they all had the same blueprint. And as promised, I told you I was going to show you the embryos of various vertebrates. Can any of you identify which one is the human? Notice you can't tell, can you? Well, maybe this will make it easier for you. The human is the second one on the right. But look at how they all start. It's the same blueprint because one thing they all have in common is a spine. And all vertebrates have a common ancestor. This is common embryology. And then last one. I know I'm kind of rushing through these last ones, but I'm running low on time. Molecular homology. All forms of life have the same DNA structure. If Philip was wearing a shirt made out of a special material and Olivia was wearing a shirt made out of the same special material, I'm going to conclude they got their shirt from the same place. Well, if every living thing has the same nitrogenous bases, ATCG, and their DNA is built the same way, it all has a common origin. Now, the more common DNA is between life forms, the more closely related they are. This means that they have a more recent common ancestor. You have more DNA in common with your sister than you do with your cousin. You definitely have DNA in common with your cousin, but your sister will have more. And so you share a more recent common ancestor with them. So to finish up, before I cut off by the bell, I want you guys to look at this chart. This chart shows different species and how many differences between their DNA they have. So please stop moving. I need you to see how this is read. Let's say I want you to tell me how many DNA differences there are in this gene between Polylepis and Gallus. They have 18 differences. Hold up. Can you tell me which two species have the fewest differences between them on this chart? Ferris and Africanus. How many differences do they have? One. That means they're very closely related. All right, I'll have to cover that again on the next class. You'll definitely see that chart on your test.